Childhood and roots in Jamaica.
I was born on February 6, 1945, in 9 Mile, a small rural village in Jamaica. My father, Norval Sinclair Marley, was a white man of English descent, while my mother, Chadella Booker, was a young black Jamaican woman. From a very young age, I learned to live between two worlds, often facing prejudice from both sides. We lived humbly, surrounded by the green hills and the intense sun of the countryside. It was there that I first heard the sounds of mento and folk music that would later shape my art. When I was still a child, my father passed away, leaving my mother and me to face life on our own. At 12, we moved to Kingston, to the Trench Town neighborhood, a place full of life but also marked by poverty and violence. In those streets, I found refuge in music. My friends and I would gather on street corners, improvising melodies with homemade instruments. It was in this environment that I met Bunny Wailer and Peter Tosh, and we discovered that together we could turn our dreams into reality. I began to believe that music could be more than entertainment. It could be a weapon of peace and a voice for those who had none. Every chord I played carried a piece of my story and the hope of my people.
The birth of the Wailers and the first steps.
In the early 1960s, Bunny Wailer and Peter Tosh decided to form a group. At first, we called ourselves the Teenagers, then the Wailing Rude Boys, and finally, the Wailers. Our goal was to transform the sound of Jamaica, mixing the island's rhythms with influences from soul and rhythm and blues from the United States. We recorded our first songs at Studio One, one of the most important studios in Kingston, under producer Coxon Dodd. That's where my voice began to be recognized. Life as a musician was far from easy. We had no money for good instruments, and radio stations often didn't play our songs. But the people in the streets knew our music and sang along to the lyrics, which spoke about their own lives. That connection with the people gave me strength to keep going. In 1966, I married Rita Anderson, who became my life partner and an important voice in my songs. That same year, I traveled to the United States to work and save money, and it was during that time that I discovered Rastafarianism, a belief that became my spiritual guide and a constant presence in my lyrics.
The Rastafari faith and transformation.
My return to Jamaica in 1966 marked a new chapter. I embraced the Rastafari faith, letting my hair grow into dreadlocks and adopting a lifestyle based on peace, unity, and resistance to oppression. Rastafarianism wasn't just a religion to me. It was a way of living and seeing the world. I learned about the teachings of Haile Selassie I, the Emperor of Ethiopia, who became a spiritual symbol for my people. The music also began to change. Alongside the Wailers, I moved away from ska and rocksteady, developing the sound that would become known as reggae. The rhythm slowed, the bass became more prominent, and the lyrics gained deeper meaning. We sang about freedom, equality, and the struggle against injustice. In the early 1970s, the Wailers signed with Island Records, and our music began to reach audiences beyond Jamaica. Albums like Catch a Fire and Burnin' brought us international recognition with songs like Get Up, Stand Up, and I Shot the Sheriff, the latter later covered by Eric Clapton, which greatly expanded our reach.
Success, fame, and political influence.
By the mid-1970s, I was no longer just a musician. My words and actions began to influence politics in Jamaica. The country was experiencing intense political and social tensions, and my music often called for peace and unity. In 1976, I organized the Smile Jamaica concert to bring people together regardless of political side. 2 days before the event, armed men broke into my home and shot me, Rita, and my manager Don Taylor. By some miracle, we survived. Even wounded, I decided to perform at the concert, believing that music should never be silenced by violence. My albums were now known worldwide. Rastaman, Vibration, and Exodus were full of messages of hope and resistance. The song One Love became an anthem of unity, while jamming celebrated joy and togetherness. Fame gave me a bigger platform, but it also came with responsibilities and dangers I had never imagined.
The One Love Peace concert and the healing of a nation.
In 1978, Jamaica was still divided between rival political factions and violence dominated the streets. I was invited to return to the island to help promote peace. That year, during the One Love Peace concert, I performed one of the most symbolic gestures of my life. In the middle of the show, I invited Prime Minister Michael Manley and opposition leader Edward Seaga to join me on stage, holding their hands together in a sign of reconciliation. That moment was more than just a show. It was a message to the world that music could heal wounds that politics could not. The international press covered the scene, and suddenly my image became that of a global messenger of peace. I kept touring and spreading reggae to every corner of the planet. In Africa, I found a deep connection with my roots, especially during the independence celebrations of Zimbabwe in 1980, where I performed despite police repression. My mission was clear: to use music to unite people, no matter where they were from.
Worldwide recognition and the height of my career.
By the late 1970s and early 1980s, reggae had become a global phenomenon, and I was its main ambassador. Albums like Kaya and Uprising solidified my position not only as an artist, but as a symbol of resistance and spirituality. Songs like Could You Be Loved and Redemption Song carried messages that transcended cultures and languages. Touring the world, I performed in front of massive crowds from Europe to Africa, Asia to the Americas. Everywhere I went, I saw the power of music to bring together people from different backgrounds, beliefs, and colors. But behind the scenes, my health was beginning to deteriorate. Few knew that I was hiding a serious medical condition, but I refused to let it stop me from completing my mission. The stage was my temple, and as long as I could stand, I would continue singing my truth.
The battle with illness and the eternal legacy.
In 1977, during a football match, an injury to my big toe revealed something much more serious: malignant melanoma. Doctors recommended amputating the toe, but I refused, as my Rastafarian faith taught me that the body should remain whole. I opted for a less invasive treatment, believing I could carry on with my life as normal. I continued recording, traveling, and performing, even as pain became part of my daily routine. In the following years, the cancer spread, but I didn't want the illness to define my story. I still went on stage, like at the legendary Milan concert, where I played for over 100,000 people, spreading my message of love and resistance. In 1980, already weakened, I embarked on one of my most emotional tours, knowing it might be my last. In September that year, during a show in Pittsburgh, I realized my body could no longer endure. Shortly after, I was hospitalized, but it was too late. On May 11, 1981, at the age of 36, I passed away, leaving behind more than just songs. I left a movement. My music became anthems of freedom and equality, echoing across all cultures and languages. My final message to the world was simple, yet carries everything I believe: money can't buy life, but love, music, and truth, those remain forever.